But let's get back into the Giants conversation in terms of what you think, because Evan and Steiny had a bit of a difference of opinion about the Giants and where they are. And yes, 10 games above 500, 50 games to go. Do you see them as a team that's in trouble, whether they make the playoffs or not, or a team that could, get the bats going and really make some noise come October?
It depends on your expectations.
Right.
And my expectations coming in that the Giants, I thought that they would be better. I believe Vegas had them, was it 60 games? Something like that. Vegas had them around 60 games, winning that many, and I thought that the Giants would eclipse that.
Or
right?
more like 80 games.
Or was it 80?
Yeah, because they didn't think that they'd be 60 and 100.
No. Yeah. 80.
I think their over-under was about 82 and a half, 83.
Sure. So they're on track to beat that, which I thought that they would. And to me, after that, when you get into playoff baseball, and now you see, okay, a star here, a star there, and to Steiny's point in the crossover, they've won those games against really good teams, right? They beat the Red Sox. They were hot. They beat the Diamondbacks. They're an up-and-coming team. Yeah, they were skidding, but, we know Diamondbacks have a lot of talent. So every team is going to drop the ball, no pun intended, on teams where they shouldn't. But can you step up? So Evan used the example of the Marlins. Well, if the Marlins can't ever punch above their weight class, then no, I don't trust them at all in the playoffs, because they're playing a bunch of teams that aren't going to be, they're beating a bunch of teams that aren't going to be in the playoffs.
Right.
So why would I care about that? You know what I mean? So the Giants, at least that they have been able to step up, and part of that is because the NL West is competitive. So I never thought that I thought the Giants would eclipse that 82 spot where Vegas had them, but I didn't think that we would be having a parade, right? But I do feel like, sidebar, they need to make the playoffs if we want to keep this Ohtani dream alive.
Absolutely.
Because he's not going somewhere that the team, he doesn't see them as competitive.
And I look at the Angels, and it's the Giants taking on the Angels. 1 of 3 tonight. Ohtani is expected to pitch on Wednesday, so assuming that the hand cramp is going to be okay, and he's got the foot problem now after he fouled the ball off his foot. Looks like Ohtani is a little bit dinged up here, more so than you would like your superstar to be. The Angels have lost 6 in a row. Mm-hmm. They're now a game below 500. They're 7 out in the wild card. So I do think that notion of the playoffs is massive in terms of the Ohtani sweepstakes, because the Dodgers are going to make the playoffs. Right now they're leading the division over the Giants by 4 full games. Mm-hmm. The Dodgers are well clear of the wild card worry. And Ohtani reportedly will look at the Dodgers and the Giants to make his decision. If the Giants don't make the playoffs, I think that basically condemns them to being out of the Ohtani sweepstakes.
Yeah, and even just looking at what the Giants have done this year, as much as I do love the fact that they brought up the kids, if I'm Ohtani, they are a bunch of question marks, right? I mean, literally all of them, from Mata. I mean, all we know from this group right now is that, and if you're counting Doval, that Doval is a stud and that Patrick Bailey is elite defensively.
Right.
That's all we know from this whole crop. And Marco Luciano, I believe there were questions last year whether he'd be able to stay at shortstop. From what I've seen, he can stay at shortstop. But we know this all comes down to hitting. You have Schmidt, who you take Schmidt down and everybody's wondering, oh my gosh, what's going to happen with him. To me, it's just a confidence thing. It is a lonely place. When you are rolling in baseball, the ball can look like a beach ball. When you are not rolling, it could look like a marble. And right now, it looks like a marble for Schmidt, and it's looked like a marble. So as much as it is, all right, we can't just have an automatic out in the lineup. It's also, if we keep this kid in and we destroy his confidence, we're not going to be able to go back to him if we do need him later, because even though Brandon Crawford heated up a little bit, it's not as if you can expect Brandon Crawford to carry the offense from a shortstop standpoint. So, hey, go down, go get your confidence right, and we can call back on you if we need to, if you can get it rolling again.
Right now, nobody is being called upon to carry the offense outside of Wilmer Flores.
Yeah.
And if you look across the board, everybody's slumping. And that's where yesterday's game, to me, becomes all the more painful, because you actually had some offense. You had 11 hits, and you had enough to where you should win that game. But defensive lapses and a lack of a quality start from Alex Cobb straight out the block. And you let a team that is the worst team in Major League Baseball, and there were times this year, Allen, where they were the worst team in the history of baseball. And if you look at the worst run differential in Major League Baseball history, the A's have a chance of eclipsing that. I think it's minus 350, and they're at minus 271. So the A's potentially, if they don't, turn this around, if they get boat raced a couple of times down the stretch here, they could threaten that low mark. Yet the Giants go in a spot where you want to end a road losing skid. You want to, get some distance between yourself and your wild card competitors, and you fall flat on your face, and you've now lost 8 in a row on the road.
But is it fair? And you can tell me if I'm lingering into Homerville here, but is it fair to say...
Because you grew up a Giants fan, right?
Yeah, but is it fair to say that in this specific situation, it's a rivalry? Throw the records out the window, or the A's that bad you can't even do that?
I don't know if it's a rivalry anymore.
Yeah.
And this is something that Mark and I and Alan Stiles is in for Mark Willard this week. Mark will be back next Monday, and I'll be out, actually. So it's a couple of weeks of Willard or Dibs, as we like to say. But I don't think that it's a rivalry anymore. Now, these games, Saturday and Sunday, were a little bit more animated, a little bit more juice out there at the Coliseum because there are so many Giants fans and many A's fans who haven't been showing up, showed up. I didn't look at the actual numbers. Felt like about 25,000 out of those games.
We knew nothing was ever going to top that first reverse boycott, but it was still a healthy group.
No, but good crowds, and I know that Bonte and Butcher Boy were out there on Saturday with a little Boxer and Gerson meet and greet, which was awesome to see. So there was a little bit more juice to the games, but I don't know if I would go so far as to call them rivalry games. And we'll get into a rivalry in baseball coming up, the Ramirez-Anderson rivalry, and we'll play the sound from that sequence coming up on the other side. But to respond to your question, I don't think that it's fair to say, well, we can excuse it, Giants, because it's a rivalry and the A's just got up for you. The Giants gave yesterday's game away through poor pitching and sloppy defense.
No, it's fair. And when I look at the Giants, there are really 3 main facets of baseball: hitting the baseball, fielding the baseball, and pitching the baseball. The Giants have question marks in 2 of them, 2 of the 3. And yesterday, to your point, they couldn't do the third. So I'm normally, I believe they're 7th in defensive rating for just out of all the other teams.
Yeah.
So normally they've locked it down. We know Brandon Crawford, that's not who he is. We know he's an elder statesman now, so it's a little bit different than Brandon Crawford of old. But he's still, in my opinion, a good shortstop. So normally the fielding, that's the one that I typically count on. It's the hitting of the baseball and the pitching of the baseball that have been the question mark. So take away this past series with the A's, they struggle with 2 of the 3, hitting the baseball and pitching the baseball. So it's very hard for me to take the Giants that seriously when you can't do 2 out of the 3 most important things in the game of baseball.
Yeah, they pitched it great out of the bullpen all year, and they've relied on 2 starting pitchers to carry the load. And yesterday they were let down by Alex Cobb, who did not have a good outing, left a bunch of pitches up and gave up 5 runs. And that's something that your only 2 quality starters, you can't have them do 5 1/3. Cobb gives up 7 hits. He gave up 2 home runs and 5 earned, and ultimately the bullpen didn't pick him up. So on to Anaheim tonight, and they take on the Los Angeles Angels, trying to end their 8-game road losing skid with Logan Webb on the mound. Feels like this game's a little bit bigger than an August game otherwise would be.
Yeah, well, and you got Logan Webb, so it's been, the offense hasn't really shown up. It's kind of been back and forth. If he pitches well, the hitting's not there. If he struggles a little bit, the hitting tries to pick him up. Sometimes they're able to, sometimes they're not. And you do have to stack up wins against the teams that you're supposed to at some point, because you do have the Dodgers in your division. The Padres, they're still a threat. I don't think that the Padres aren't obviously going to be what you thought they were going to be, but they're still a threat. There are not a lot of teams you can sleep on in the division. So when you have an opportunity, should the Giants take advantage and should have taken advantage of the A's? They should have, but you got to move forward now, and hopefully you can take advantage of the Angels and do a couple things. Get some W's and show Ohtani right in front of his face who he could be with next year. And I know there are going to be a lot of Giants fans that think it's still far-fetched. I don't. I do think it's far-fetched if they don't make the playoffs. But going back to to this season specifically, ultimately, we saw this story already, right? We've already watched this. It's a rerun to me, and a lesser rerun. You know, season 2 is normally not as good as season 1.
Right.
Season 1 was a couple years ago when they won the 107 games.
Yeah.
That was season 1. And we had no clue what to do with that team.
Season 2 was kind of like The Wire when they all of a sudden went to the docks.
Exactly.
Like, wait, that was last year.
And
I like season 2 of The Wire,
but
by the
it's
way.
not as good as season 1.
No, in season 3 they got back to business.